Good morning, Morning Musings by Melinda. Hey, I just wanted to remind you that we have about 5 tickets left for March 7th at Harkins Theater for a Life After Life demonstration. We will have microphones, so we will be able to talk to each other, and we will be able to make our spiritual connections for those that are on the other side. So jump up on the website and get those last tickets that are available, and then we'll have a full house. Also, remember that in a week from Thursday, we are doing a Zoom codependency class. Amanda Chavez, psychotherapist, and myself together at 6:30. I think we have 2 places left for that. So if you're interested in codependency or you want to wonder why you're so nice and then people give you a hard time for it, codependency class is for you. I have a good one today. And it was really interesting when I did my homework on this because I learned some things that I didn't know about guilt and how the brain works. And so, I talk about the spiritual part of things, but I also want to know about how the brain works, the psychology of it, how it all orchestrates together, body, mind, and spirit, what we're supposed to be processing on the earth plane, how we're supposed to understand ourselves. And it just was a fascinating exploration of what guilt was here. Jody Zimmer, her topic for musing was dealing with guilt, the conflict on what to do in this situation. Bleh, I can't talk today, can I? Your kids want you to stay quarantined, yet at the same time you have to live your life and take care of your obligations, and you feel guilty about everything you do. I am personally so tired of it. Well, first of all, I have to say, yay for your kids to be so aware that there are certain age groups that are more likely to get very sick if they get COVID. Not necessarily everybody, but it's nice to have kids that really care about you. And you just have to assure them that you're doing everything right, wearing your mask when you're supposed to, and, staying 6 feet away from everyone, and keep reassuring your kids. But it brought the subject of guilt up to my mind because, I was raised Catholic, so we're taught that we're born with original sin, so we're guilty from the minute we open our eyes, right? My mother used to say that Jewish mothers created guilt and Catholic mothers perfected it. So I wonder, why do we have guilt? Like, what is the reason that we have the emotion of guilt? Like, I understand why we have anger. Anger can cause a direction, can create a map, can give us rocket fuel of movement. In spirituality, we teach there are only 2 real emotions on the planet, love and fear, and everything else is a footnote of one of those emotions. So when you're jealous, you're afraid of something. When you feel shamed, you're afraid of something. When you feel guilty, you're afraid of something. And the same thing on love. When you're excited, when you have joy, when you have gratitude, those are all footnotes of love. So I thought, what is it about us as human beings that really sometimes welcomes guilt, or, those certain people that kind of like to be guilty or, kind of wallow in it because that becomes their identity. Why? So I kind of looked at the science behind guilt, which I've got to put my glasses on for, which is really, really interesting. And I can't really go through it all because it's a lot. But if you want to take a look at this article, it's by David Burns, who is a professor of psychiatry at Stanford University Medical School, and he authored a book called Feeling Good, the New Mood Therapy. And so I just thought this was very amazing on how his understanding is of guilt and how the brain works. So, despite their differences, pride, shame, and guilt all activate similar circuits in the brain. And he lists those circuits, which, I'm going to just tumble over those words and not say them appropriately or pronounce them appropriately. But interestingly, pride is the most powerful of these emotions at triggering activity in these regions where guilt and shame went out over a certain part of a brain, only on a certain part of a brain. And this explains why it can be so appealing to heap guilt and shame on ourselves, because they're activating the brain's reward center. Now, isn't that interesting? I hate the word shame. I hate it when, somebody says shame on you, because it just brings forward that feeling of being burdened by having a behavior that has been inappropriate. But when I looked at this and saw that it activated the brain's reward center, I found it very interesting. Not that I want you to go around shaming people, but you understand that this is why we have this kind of conditioning in our brain. This is, in spirituality, the duality, the light versus the shadow side that we have on the earth plane. So guilt serves a powerful social function in terms of policing our behavior. Well, we knew that, right? But what we didn't know is that people who are prone to guilt tend to work harder and perform better than people who are not guilt prone and are perceived to be more capable leaders. In other words, there's a conscience factor involved. So you're more conscientious when your conscience is involved. And so it's kind of that teeter-totter of balance that we're constantly talking about as we're talking about spirituality and how the brain works, behavior, personality, flaws, character flaws, the things that we're talking about, okay? People who expect to feel guilty, again, according to this man, tend to be more sympathetic, to put themselves into other people's shoes, or to think about the consequences of their behavior before acting, and to treasure their morals. As a result, they are less prone to lie, cheat, or behave immorally when they conduct a business deal or spot an opportunity to make money, studies suggest. They are also likely to make better employees because people who think less about the future results of their actions are more likely to be late or to steal or to be rude to clients. So this is very interesting. I just thought that this was an interesting study because, again, being raised the way I was raised, I'm really prone to feeling some guilt, right? And I've always thought it was a useless emotion until I really did my homework here. Again, I don't want somebody to walk around, being guilty all the time, because that's not healthy either. That's a negative emotion that angers us and pulls us down. But if we understand it and try to balance it, will help us understand, the positive aspects of this. So, it allows yourself to be in more self-control because you're more self-critical, so to speak, okay? All right, so you know what? Forgiving yourself and not guilt increases personal accountability. So there's the fine line between the two. If you feel guilty and you forgive yourself, then you'll be more accountable. If you feel guilty and you wallow in it and you anchor yourself in it, you're identifying in a victim mode, and you will be a constant poor me, and that will become who you are, as that poor me. So it just is so interesting to see how guilt works. So he gives a list here. By the way, I just want to say, thinking that you're a bad person does not make you a bad person. We all do things, and we're all young at some point in time when we don't know any better and we don't know shit from shinola, right? And the truth is that we repeat the patterns of our parents, and we do things that we don't recognize that we're doing, that come from our subconscious mind. And then after we learn, we may look back and say, wow, I wish I hadn't done that, and feel a little guilt about that. But understanding it at that level helps you to forgive yourself, because guilt can be overwhelming, and you just have to kind of return to the core of what the behavior was that you're feeling guilty about, recognize it, forgive it, balance it, and move on, so that you're productive and you have that feel-good energy that was created in the first place from it, okay? All right, so what did he give me? He gave me here a list. Oh, wait, this one is good. I do want to say this one. It's about self-compassion. According to this article, the bottom line is that according to the science, self-compassion appears to offer the same advantages as high self-esteem with no discernible downsides. This is from a study in the brain and how the brain lights up. The first thing to know is that self-compassion and self-esteem do tend to go together. So that's great. So here's how the sum up is. Stop magnifying. Ask yourself if your self-punitive energy fits the crime. In other words, don't make anything that you feel guilty about your self-identity, because all you will do is attract that behavior back at you and continue to process yourself in that way. So you have to work towards the compassion, the self-compassion, and the self-forgiveness. You are not your actions. Remember that. You are not your actions. You have the ability to change. And you can teach an old dog new tricks. So if you have had patterns in your life and you can't figure them out, go somewhere and figure them out. Self-compassion, which we already went over, apologies, which are very important, and that level of forgiveness. So I just thought that was a super interesting article about guilt. But as far as the guilt about your children wanting you to stay in quarantine the whole time through the pandemic, honestly, we just have to watch what we're doing, be respectful, honor each other, do the best we can through this thing, and keep praying that it's almost over. Keep praying that it's almost over. So I hope that you have a really lovely day. And I had the greatest moment this morning on my drive to work. I was turning off, and on the other side of the road was a truck with this enormous, lovely, big white and black dog with fluffy hair. I'm not sure what he was, hanging out the window with his arm on the side of the window like this, just kind of chilling in the truck. And I thought, it's a dog's life, and dogs don't feel guilty. Have a great day.